Joining us now is Maryland Congressman Elijah Cummings, whose district was the scene of weeks of protest after last year Freddie Gray, a young black man, died while in police custody. Congressman, thank you for joining us.
Good to be with you, John.
Let's start with this. What would you tell a young African-American 18-year-old man in your district who came to you and said, what does my future look like?
I would tell him that he's going to have a lot of barriers to get to where he has to go, but that he can make it. And I would tell him to do everything in his power to get a good education, but I would also tell him to be careful in whatever he does.
Does that mean be careful in interactions with the police?
No doubt about it. And one of the sad things about what happened in Minnesota is that he was a man who was doing everything right, John. He said, look, you know, I've got a gun. He was authorized to carry it. And the next thing you know, he's dead. And I think that what has happened is that a lot of people don't understand what it's like for African-American men and boys to know that at any moment you're going to be pulled over and that your life could end. And a lot of folks can't understand that.
These videos are so powerful.
They're very powerful.
And yet, in a political sense, you saw today Secretary of Homeland Security there with Commissioner Bratton, sending a very clear signal, both in visual but explicit terms, that he stands with the police. The administration seems to be worried that the focus on improving policing has maybe gotten to painted with too broad a brush on all of police.
Well, I think what happens is that people, when these kind of incidents happen, in Dallas and in Minnesota, in Baton Rouge, people automatically say, oh, we need to go into a corner. And if I am for good policing and want the respect of police in the African-American community, they think that you're against police. But on the other hand, they don't understand that there's pain when these things happen in the African-American community. But John, there's also pain by African-Americans when police are murdered like they were in Dallas. Yeah. And a lot of times people don't understand that. And all basically people are asking for respect. And in Baltimore, I gotta tell you, you talked about since the disturbances, Kevin Davis, our police commissioner, now requires new recruits to go out 3.5 months, you know, once they get on the force. And all they do is go throughout the community, policing. So they get an idea of who they are working with. And we don't have time to turn against each other. We have to turn towards each other.
Tell me about the aftermath of Baltimore. It was such a central part of the conversation. Where do things stand now? Well,
we've had now 4 trials. We're in the 4th one now. And there was a hung jury, and then there were 2 not guilty verdicts. We got 3 trials, 1 going on now and 2 more. And I think, but you know what? People saw justice being carried out, and we did not have the loud protests. There were peaceful protests, but they were small. But people understood that justice was happening. And that was important to them. In most of these cases, less than 2% of the cases are charges ever filed. And that's one of the things that people are concerned about, John. They see police doing things like they did in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and then they say, well, the police, there was a bad act. Yeah. But are there consequences?
Right. Well, that's what I wonder about in Baltimore. You had the hung jury and the 2 acquittals. Some people would say that's not consequences for Freddie Gray, who died after being in custody.
Well, as I say to my constituents, they asked for justice, and justice is rolling. And you cannot guarantee results with justice. So I think one of the reasons why people have not gotten as upset is because they believe that justice is happening.
President Obama said that in his press conference, he said there were times when activists might have engaged in rhetoric that was overheated and occasionally counterproductive. What's your feeling about that in terms of, and what he's talking about here is rhetoric with respect to the police?
I think we have to be careful about whatever we say these days. That goes from our leaders to what people put on Facebook, because I think people do have a tendency to act on certain things. And I think we have to be very careful. And I think the rhetoric can speed up and get loud, and then people react to that. But you know what? We have to make sure that we understand that the community needs the police, and the police need the community. We're all in this boat together.
All right. Congressman Elijah Cummings, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.